Hello fellow cinephiles, Film Guru here. Today I'm reviewing the new Netflix film, Dolemite is my name. This was directed by Greg Brewer, stars Eddie Murphy, Mike Epps, Wesley Snipes, Divine Joy Randolph, Craig Robinson and Snoop Dogg, and a variety of others. This film really follows the true life story of Rudy Ray Moore, who was sort of a pioneer in a way for blaxploitation cinema. He created this film called Dolemite is my name, which did really well in the 70s when it came out and became one of the most highly successful films ever in that sort of arena and that genre. It really focuses on who this man was and what led him to make this film, and the journey that he went on to do this. And he's marvelously played by Eddie Murphy, who's just fantastic in this. I haven't seen him this good since Dreamgirls. I think he's a really great actor when he wants to be. He has talent. He can be humorous, but this felt like he was really portraying this person. We didn't see the normal Eddie Murphy we see. We didn't get the laugh that he usually does. There was a smile occasionally that reminded you of Eddie Murphy that we knew. But he sort of kept to the story he was telling and the character he was portraying. Dolemite was a character he created. He got up on stage and he did like stand-up and comedy. He told stories and he was just sort of became very popular that way. He was a very driven man. He tried hard to break in, as he called it, into that sort of entertainment world. He knew clubs, he knew promoters, he knew how to sort of put himself out there. And he wasn't scared to look like a fool on stage. He could kind of sing and he was kind of funny. And it really looks at the relationships he had with the people around him, a lot of his friends who were trying to get into that sort of world as well, and musicians and people like that. And he really was very driven. You know, he started out doing these stand-up things and he decided to record himself, started to put records out, and he slowly became well known for doing that. And he'd go on the road and he'd do a lot of tours. He'd pick up people along the way and he'd put them into his shows, which I really liked. I think all the acting's solid here. Everybody does a great job. Wesley Snipes is really great in this. He's playing a role I hadn't seen him play before. And he was sort of add a lot of humor and an interesting element to it, and I thought he was great. And he said in interviews he's always wanted to work with Eddie Murphy, and this gave him his opportunity. But it's just good to see these two bounce off each other. I think Wesley Snipes is a very solid actor. He's done a lot of martial arts stuff, yes, and a variety of things, but he is a solid actor. He can do pretty much everything. Sort of a newcomer or an actress I hadn't really seen, Divine Joy Randolph. She's really great in this. She plays a real life character. Rudy Ray Moore found in a club and she was a singer, and he started to put her into his shows but then also put her in the movie, and she's really greatly portrayed here. I think this actress is fantastic and is one to sort of watch out for. I like, ultimately, the reason he decided to make the movie, Dolemite is my name, is to sort of, one, get himself out there and be seen on a bigger world stage, I guess you could say. And it also he wanted to portray what real life was like, the things that he witnessed. Yes, it does have kung fu in it, it does have a little silliness, and that's his style and that's what he puts into it. But it was sort of it was like a film showing the world of what sort of life was like in some of the ghettos and certain places that African Americans lived within America, and the effect that had. And they would go to movies and watch, you know, Front Page was one film they went and saw, and they just didn't get the humor. It was very different and weird and obscure to them. It wasn't the stuff they used to and the humor that they usually find humorous. And so they wanted to do something that sort of represented their world in many ways. And that's when he sort of came up with the film. He got this great writer who was working on stage, like Keegan Keyes plays, and they sort of crafted this script. But Rudy really put himself into this. He really put a lot of his humor, and he did things the way he knew how to do them. And that was really great. He hired this mostly white crew to sort of film it. They were very young and naive, but they were able to bring to life the vision he had in his head. Wesley Snipes' character is directing it, and the way it sort of transpires. There's a lot of humor all the way through it. It was a story you could really connect to. It was about an underdog overcoming so much. He was a very strong man, I felt, in many ways. Because no matter what people told him, you can't do this, you can't do that, he persevered. He found a way to do what he wanted to do, in the way he wanted it. He never took no as an answer. And even when he finds a door slammed in his face, as he says, he looks for another one. He looks for a window, he finds another way in. He does get disheartened throughout the film, especially after they make the film and are unable to distribute it or put it out there in cinemas. And he risks everything to make this film. And I think that's the most interesting thing for this sort of man, that he risked everything. He doesn't own his songs in the end, and all these things that he did to earn money he didn't own anymore because he put so much of himself into this film. But after a chance meeting of putting it in a cinema and seeing the audience react to it, then people cottoned on to that, and he was able to join with another company, Dimension Films, that were able to put his film out there and show the world. There's many great scenes in this film. When he first becomes Dolemite, it's really great to see him up on stage. When they're making the film, that's the most fun and entertaining part, where they're trying to come together and make this film as a group, and the stuff they add to it. There's a particular reenactment of a sex scene that was in the movie that's really funny and hilarious. The roof collapses, and just the way they portray it's really great. And scenes where he's trying to do kung fu and you can see he can't do it, and it kind of looks silly and funny. But just sort of the heartfelt moments, like just before they're about to shoot, he's living in this old abandoned hotel and he's sitting on stage learning his lines, and he finds this old picture of his father who was very abusive. He ran away from home when he was 15 because he couldn't take it anymore. He wanted to make something of himself, and his father's had always told him he would be nothing and he would amount to nothing. And he has this scene where he's looking in the mirror and he's sort of going off about his father, but he's putting that into the character, and it's a really great moment. I really like when they go to the premiere of the film, and then when they show up at the cinema, there's lines of people. There's people waiting to get into this film. And rather than him going into the cinema with everybody else, he stands out with these young kids and the audience that are going in that have to be waiting till 2 o'clock in the morning to get into a showing of this. And he just spends his time with them. And I think that's such a great moment and a great scene. And I think it's one of the best Netflix films out there, and I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it, especially if you're a fan of Eddie Murphy, because I think he's brilliant in this. And this is a film that Eddie Murphy's been trying to get made for a number of years. He acts as producer as well as actor, and he just really wanted to bring this to the screen. I think Greg Brewer is a really talented filmmaker. I've liked his early films like Hustle and Flow, Black Snake Moan, and even Footloose remake to a point. I think he's talented filmmaker. He has original voice. He's part of that world from Mississippi and other sort of country sort of areas in America, and he knows this sort of world, and he knows these sort of people because he grew up with them, and he knows how to portray them on screen, and I think he was a great choice for this film. I think it works really well. I think it portrays a realistic interpretation of this man who existed and the life that he lived and how he persevered no matter what. It's good to see a movie like this with a character so driven. Have a story-focused film where it didn't need to be flashy, it didn't need to have flashy shots or, really orchestral music or anything. It was just a story that carried you through. And this really accomplished so much, and I was really impressed with this. And I'd be surprised if Eddie Murphy isn't nominated for this film. I think he's so great in it. Final thoughts. Look, like I said, Eddie Murphy's fantastic. Craig Brewer's created a really great and interesting film with a really great story. For anyone who's a filmmaker, enjoys filmmaking or seeing behind the scenes of this film, Dolemite by Name, that they made, this is definitely a film for you. I'm going to give Dolemite Is My Name 4 out of 5. I really like this film. Anyway, that's all from me today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please subscribe down the bottom. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Otherwise, until next time, enjoy the movies.